The content in this video is based on factual, real-life events and public records. All opinions expressed are for educational and documentary purposes only. Viewer discretion is advised, as some scenes may depict sensitive content. This video is intended for informative purposes and complies with YouTube's guidelines. The sirens were already screaming before anyone hit the alarm. In the middle of Dyer Block, under the flickering lights that always made the whole place feel like a ticking bomb, 3 gangs had crashed into each other at the same time. It happened so fast that even the guards froze for a split second. Jace, Redline, Morgan was in the center of it all, his arms and chest covered in inked flames that crawled up his neck. He had been running with the Iron Vipers for years, a crew known for running contraband and protecting their own like family. Across from him stood Malik Stonehand, Rivers of the Black Yard Union, his tattoo sleeves crawling with symbols that told stories of battles he'd survived in Detroit and Atlanta before landing in this prison. But the part that shocked everyone wasn't the Iron Vipers or the Black Yard Union. It was the entrance of the group no one ever expected to step onto the block, the Ridgecrest Kings. A Canadian-born gang, quiet, strategic, and almost invisible inside the facility until now. Their leader, Sloan Harkness, tall, pale, and covered in cold, geometric tattoos, said nothing as he stepped forward. He only watched Jace and Malik like he was calculating something dangerous. The block went silent for half a second, the kind of silence that comes right before something terrible happens. Everyone could feel it, the guards, the inmates, even the cameras that never stopped recording. And then Sloan said the last thing anyone expected to hear. "It's time we finish what started in the yard." No one had known the Ridgecrest Kings had a stake in this. No one even knew they were aligned with anyone. But the fact that Sloan openly stepped into a conflict meant one thing. This wasn't a random fight. It was a takeover. But the question no one could answer in that second was simple. How did 3 of the most dangerous prison gangs in the United States all end up in the same place, at the same moment, ready to tear the block apart? And why were the quiet ones suddenly leading the charge? To understand that, you'd have to go back before the yard incident, before Sloan arrived from Canada, before Jace earned the flames on his neck, and before Malik became the person every new inmate learned never to disrespect. Everything started months earlier, long before anyone realized the entire prison was slowly drifting toward a war nobody saw coming. If you enjoy real, gripping prison documentaries and true stories, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, and share it with your friends and family. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss more shocking and exclusive content. Long before the clash in Dyer Block, Jace Morgan had already learned one hard truth. The United States prison system wasn't a place where people survived alone. Every inmate had to belong somewhere, or the place would eat them alive. When Jace first walked through the steel gates of Holbrook Federal, he kept his head down. His flame tattoos were already crawling across his arms back then, each one drawn by a friend from his old crew on the outside. They weren't just designs, they were promises. Each flame represented someone he had sworn to protect, someone he had lost, or someone he owed. But inside Holbrook, tattoos didn't earn respect. Actions did. And the first action that changed everything happened on a quiet morning during kitchen duty. Jace wasn't looking for trouble that day. He wasn't part of any gang yet and hadn't made enemies. But trouble didn't care. Trouble arrived in the form of a tray that slid off the counter and the shove that followed it. Malik Rivers stood behind him, arms crossed, watching with the stern, unblinking look he gave everyone he considered and proven. "You're in my spot," Malik said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried enough weight that the entire kitchen paused. Jace didn't move. Not because he wanted to challenge Malik, but because he didn't understand the rules yet. And rules mattered more in prison than in any other place on earth. "You knew?" Malik asked, stepping closer. His tattoos, thick black symbols and sharp angles, ran up his arms like armor. "Couple weeks," Jace said quietly. Malik tilted his head, studying him. "Then you should know. Nobody stands here unless they're union." Jace didn't know yet what the union was, but he was about to find out. A hand landed on his shoulder before Malik could finish. It belonged to Brick Navarro, the enforcer of the Iron Vipers. Brick was massive, his tattoos mostly animals, a wolf on one arm, a roaring bear on the other. He pulled Jace back gently, almost respectfully. "He's with us," Brick said. Jace froze. He wasn't with anyone. Brick was lying. But Brick wasn't looking at him. He was looking straight at Malik, daring him to challenge the claim. Malik didn't blink. He doesn't look like vipers. He is now, Brick replied. That moment should have ended in a fight. It should have escalated into something bigger. But Malik only nodded once and stepped back. For now. Later that night, Jace confronted Brick in the yard. I'm not one of you, he said. You are now, Brick replied. Unless you want to be dead by tomorrow. That was the moment Jace realized Holbrook Federal wasn't run by guards, cameras, or the law. It was run by the gangs. The Vipers, the Union, the Ridgecrest Kings, and a few smaller crews trying to survive the cracks between them. But even then, before the tension, before the takeover, none of them knew the real danger wasn't coming from any inmate. It was coming from the outside. Shipments were about to change. Influence was about to change. And the balance that kept everyone at peace was about to break. All it needed was one event to light the fuse. And it came during a routine search day, a day no one expected to matter. The guards found something hidden in a vent in Dyer Block. Something that didn't belong to any of the main gangs. Something that didn't come from inside the prison at all. The moment the guards held it up, every inmate watching knew instantly. Things inside Holbrook were about to change forever. And by midnight that night, one man would disappear from his cell without anyone seeing how. That disappearance would be the spark that pulled Jace, Malik, and Sloan into the same war. The one that would end with Dyer Block exploding into chaos. The night the prison shifted felt strange from the beginning. Holbrook Federal always carried a heavy quiet after lights out. But that night the silence felt tight, like the whole place was holding its breath. Even the guards walked slower, watching the shadows instead of the inmates. Jace lay on his bunk staring at the ceiling, still thinking about the item found in the vent earlier. No one had said what it was. No announcement. No explanation. But word spread through the cells like it always did. Fast, quiet, and twisted. Some said it was a map. Some said it was a coded message. Some said it was a phone. But the rumor that made the most people whisper was the simplest. It belonged to the Ridgecrest Kings. The Kings never caused trouble. Never argued. Never fought unless attacked. They operated like businessmen, not gang members. They didn't hustle, didn't gamble, didn't take sides. They stayed invisible, and that invisibility kept them powerful. So if something dangerous was found in a vent and it belonged to them, that meant something big was moving under the surface. Something nobody had seen coming. Jace tried to sleep, but he kept replaying the look on Sloan Harkness's face from earlier in the day. Sloan was standing across the yard when the guards held up the discovery. He didn't react. Not even a twitch. As if he expected it. Around midnight, the quiet broke. A metallic crack echoed through the block, sharp enough to wake everyone. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a fight. It was something more chilling, a sound that didn't belong inside a locked federal facility. Jace jumped up, grabbed the bars, and looked down the block. A few other inmates had woken too, whispering, turning on their small reading lights, peeking through the slots in their doors. Brick's voice came from the next cell over. Stay put. As if anyone was planning to do anything else. Footsteps rushed down the hallway. Guards talking in low, frantic voices. Keys rattling. A door opening. A door closing. And then a phrase no inmate ever wanted to hear. He's gone. The entire block fell into a deeper silence than before. Whoever he was didn't matter yet. Only the impossible part mattered. Nobody just disappears from Holbrook. Not at night. Not in daylight. Not at all. Even whispers were rare after that. It was like the walls themselves didn't want to spread the news. The next morning the rumors hit like a storm. The inmate who vanished was named Aiden Chisel Marrow, a man who didn't belong to any major gang. He wasn't dangerous. He wasn't important. He barely spoke. But everyone knew he had worked in Dyer Block maintenance, fixing vents, clearing pipes, cleaning the hidden corners of the prison no one else ever saw. He was the only inmate with regular access to the vents. And now he was gone. During breakfast, Jay sat with Brick and two other Vipers. They ate quietly until Brick leaned forward and said the words no one expected. The Union is blaming us. Jace lifted his eyes. Why? Because Chisel was last seen working on our side of Dyer. They think we put him in a vent and moved him out. That's stupid, Jace said. We don't move people. Brick nodded. Doesn't matter. They need someone to blame. And the Kings aren't saying a word. Jace turned his head slowly toward the Ridgecrest King's table. Sloan and his people sat perfectly still, eating like nothing in the world was wrong. Calm. Focused. Not even glancing around. But their calm made everything worse. Because calm meant control. Calm meant preparation. Calm meant they knew exactly what happened. Jace didn't know why, but he felt something cold settle into his stomach. As if the Kings weren't worried about the Union or the Vipers. They were waiting. By afternoon, the Union had already begun circling the yard in groups, moving like a storm cloud. Malik Rivers walked in the center of his crew, his tattooed hands clenched, his jaw tight. Every few seconds, he scanned the yard until his eyes found Jace. He didn't speak. He didn't nod. He didn't blink. He simply watched. Brick nudged Jace. Stick close. Jace shook his head. I didn't do anything. In here, Brick replied, truth doesn't matter. Only stories do. And right now, the Union is righting the wrong one. The tension rose hour by hour. Guards increased patrols. Inmates kept their backs to the wall. Even the radios buzzed with static like they were nervous. The warden tried to calm everyone by locking down 2 blocks temporarily. But locking down one section only squeezed pressure into another. Holbrook was like a boiler. You couldn't trap heat in one corner without something else overheating. Then, just before evening count, the first sign of real danger came. A message slid under Jace's cell door. Not handwritten. Not torn from a notebook. It was a printed photo, grainy, taken from a security camera, showing Chisel walking into Dire block maintenance alone. Nothing strange about that. But the part that made Jace freeze wasn't Chisel. It was the man walking behind him. Sloan. Sloan, calm as always. Sloan, hands in pockets. Sloan, head slightly bent as if he was talking quietly to the maintenance worker. And under the image, typed in small black letters, ask him where your friend went. Jace stared at the picture until lights out. Somebody wanted him to challenge Sloan. Somebody wanted him to step into the middle of something he didn't understand. But the worst part wasn't the message. It was the sound that came moments later, right as the lights shut off for the night. Quick footsteps rushing past the cells, followed by shouts from the guards, then a voice yelling from the far end of the block. Open it. Open it now. Someone had triggered an emergency override from inside a cell. That had never happened before. As the alarms blared and the lights flashed red, Jace realized the truth. The disappearance wasn't the end of a mystery. It was the beginning of a war. And the Kings had just made their first move. Red lights pulsed across the block like a heartbeat gone wrong. Every cell flashed in the same rhythm. Bright, dark, casting long shadows that stretched and snapped back with each flicker. Jace gripped the bars, trying to see where the guards were running. Their voices bounced across the hallway, sharp and rushed. Someone had hit an emergency release button. Each cell in Holbrook Federal had only one thing inmates weren't supposed to reach, the small override switch hidden behind a locked metal plate. Pressing it forced a guard to open the cell manually in case of medical danger or fire. But that switch could only be touched if the cover was removed with a special key. So how did an inmate get to it? Brick yelled over the noise from his cell. Nobody moves. Stay back. No one listened. Everyone was already at their doors, trying to glimpse the chaos. A guard sprinted past, talking into his radio. North side override was forced. Repeat, forced. Someone tampered with the panel. Tampered. The meaning hit Jace instantly. Chisel had access to maintenance. Vents. Wiring. Emergency panels. That was his job. Sloan had followed him into Dire. Now, someone had just triggered a switch that only a maintenance worker would know how to reach. Jace felt his pulse hammering. Whatever the Ridgecrest Kings were doing, they were doing it quietly. No shouting. No fighting. Just silent moves, each more dangerous than the last. A heavy clang echoed through the block as a guard unlocked the emergency cell. Everyone stretched to see inside. Then the guard stepped back, shouting, "He's unconscious." Another guard radioed for medical. Possible drugging. No sign of struggle. Rumors exploded instantly. Union got him. No, Vipers. No, that's the Kings. Always quiet, but they plan everything. Jace didn't join the noise. He kept staring at Sloan's cell. The door was locked, lights flashing red over it like every other cell. But Jace noticed one thing the others didn't. Sloan was sitting on the edge of his bed, hands folded, staring straight ahead. Not curious, not scared, not pretending, just waiting, like the whole situation was following a schedule he already knew. Jace stepped back from the bars, unsettled. Brick called softly through the wall. "Kid, listen to me. Something's coming. Jace didn't reply. He didn't need words to understand what Brick meant. The override wasn't random. The disappearance wasn't random. The vent discovery wasn't random. Pieces were moving in a pattern nobody recognized yet. And someone wanted the Vipers and the Union to blame each other. Morning arrived under heavy lockdown. No yard time. No cafeteria. Food delivered to cells. Tension pressed on the air so thick it felt like walking through smoke. Around noon, 2 guards came for Jace. "You." Step back from the door. Jace raised his hands. "Why?" "No talking." "Step back." Brick banged on his door. "He's done nothing." "Quiet," the guard snapped. The door slid open. Jace stepped out, hands cuffed. His mind raced. Was this about the photo? The panel being forced? Chisel? The guards marched him across the block toward the interrogation rooms. The walk felt longer than usual. Inmates watched from their windows, some whispering, some smirking, some confused. When the guards pushed Jace into the room, he expected a warden, a lieutenant, maybe a security investigator. Instead, Sloan was already sitting inside. Jace froze. The guards uncuffed him and left without a word, shutting the door behind them. Jace stared. "Why are you here?" Sloan gestured for him to sit. "Because someone wants you to believe I took Chisel." Jace didn't sit. "Did you?" "No." "Then why were you behind him in the hallway?" Sloan smiled slightly. Not kind, not mocking, just controlled. "Because he asked me for help." Jace narrowed his eyes. "Help with what?" "Getting out." Jace felt the air leave his lungs. "You're saying he escaped?" "Not escaped." Sloan leaned back. "Relocated." That word sent a chill down Jace's spine. People don't get relocated from federal prison. Sloan didn't blink. People do whatever the right people want. Chisel had information someone needed. Very badly. And now that he's been moved, that information will be harder to find. Jace shook his head. "This makes no sense." "It will," Sloan said calmly. "Soon." Jace took a step forward. "Why drag me into this? Why send me that picture?" "Because they're trying to use you." Sloan looked up slowly. "Someone wants you to spark a war between the Vipers and the Union." Jace felt the words hit him like a punch. "They know Brick claimed you early," Sloan continued. "They know Malik watches you. You're the rope being pulled from both sides." Jace's jaw tightened. "Who is they?" Sloan's voice lowered. "The people who took Chisel." Before Jace could speak, the door burst open. A guard rushed in. "Move. Both of you. There's trouble in the yard." Jace stiffened. "What kind of trouble?" The guard hesitated. Then he said the words nobody wanted to hear. "Malik Rivers just called out Brick Navarro." Jace's heart dropped. A challenge. A direct call-out. A spark ready to hit gasoline. The guard grabbed Jace's arm. "If the Vipers answer this, we're locking down the whole facility." But Jace barely heard him. Brick and Malik. The Vipers and the Union. A trapped prison with rising pressure. The war Sloan warned about wasn't coming. It was already here. And Brick had just stepped into the center of it. The moment the guard said Brick's name, Jace felt something locked tight in his chest. Brick Navarro wasn't perfect, but he wasn't reckless. For Malik Rivers to call him out meant someone had pushed a button deep enough to make him react. The guards rushed everyone toward their cells, preparing for a lockdown, but the yard gates were already open, and Brick was already stepping out. Jace could see him through the small window beside the door as the officers guided him down the hall. Brick wasn't marching fast or slow. He moved with the same calm he always carried, shoulders squared, jaw set, tattoos peeking out from under his sleeves, each step deliberate. But Jace could tell from the tightness in Brick's eyes that he already knew why Malik was waiting for him. The yard was silent except for wind pushing dust across the concrete. Malik stood at the center with his Union crew spread in a loose circle around him. His arms were crossed, the tattoos on his forearms dark against the sunlight. He didn't shout. He didn't pace. He just stared at Brick like the entire place belonged to him. When Brick reached the yard, the guards stopped at the gate. They didn't move forward. They didn't intervene. They just waited. Holbrook had rules, but even the warden knew better than to get in between a direct call-out between two leaders. Call-outs weren't about violence. They were about power. About who controlled the story. About who controlled the prison. Brick walked straight to Malik and stopped just a few feet away. Malik didn't blink. "Where's Chisel?" Brick answered, steady and quiet. "You know I don't touch maintenance guys." Malik took one slow step closer. "Then explain why my people say they saw your kid walking near Dyer the night he disappeared." Jace felt his blood run cold. Brick didn't move. My kid. You're pulling him in now. You tell me, Malik said. You claim him. He follows you. You protect him. So if he's mixed in this, it's on you. Brick shook his head. Jace didn't do anything. Malik leaned forward slightly. Then why'd someone leave a message saying your people grabbed Chisel? Brick's eyebrows lowered. What message? Malik didn't respond with words. He pointed straight at Sloane Harkness. Sloane was standing on the far end of the yard, watching everything unfold, hands in his pockets like the entire event was a quiet Monday morning meeting. Brick's eyes narrowed. You think the Kings are behind this? I think you're lying, Malik replied. And someone is planning something big. Someone who knows Vince. Someone who knows emergency overrides. Someone who knows how to move a man without anyone seeing. Brick's jaw flexed. You're spinning stories, Malik. And you're hiding something, Malik shot back. The tension snapped tight. Even the guards shifted, unsure if they needed to intervene. Jace's breath caught as he watched through the hallway window. He could feel the whole facility holding still. Then something unexpected happened. Brick slowly raised both hands, not in surrender, but in a gesture of clarity. You're blaming the wrong people, he said. Chisel didn't vanish because of the Vipers. And he didn't vanish because of the Union. Malik's eyes darkened. Then who took him? Brick looked toward Sloane. Sloane didn't flinch. Brick said, someone who wants us pointing at each other. A murmur rippled through the yard as inmates pressed to the fences. Malik snapped, stopped talking in circles. Brick took one slow breath, then answered. Chisel wasn't taken by a gang. He was taken by the people who run the vents. For the first time, Malik's expression shifted. Confusion. Brick continued, voice steady. Someone gave maintenance workers access to areas not on the map. Someone gave them override panels. Someone hid entire corridors above the older sections of Holbrook. And someone used Chisel to open those places. Malik stared at him. What are you saying? Jace felt the truth settle like a weight. Brick wasn't accusing anyone inside the prison. He was accusing someone above it. Before Brick could explain further, the intercom crackled loudly. All inmates, return to your cells immediately. The gates slammed open, and guards flooded the yard. Not walking, running. Something had happened. Two guards grabbed Brick by the arms, pulling him back toward the building. Malik was forced backward by officers pushing the Union crew apart. Jace pressed his face to the window as Brick was dragged inside. Brick! Jace shouted. Brick yanked his arm free long enough to shout back. Find the vents, Jace. That's where it starts. Before Jace could reply, the guards pulled Brick around the corner and out of sight. The yard alarm blared again. But this time, it wasn't for a fight. A guard sprinted down the hallway, yelling into his radio. Another one's missing. Second inmate. Gone from lockup. Same pattern. Jace felt his legs weaken. 2 disappearances. Both connected to maintenance. Both without a trace. And Brick was removed from the population immediately after pointing at the vents. Jace turned toward the far end of the block. Sloane was no longer standing in the yard. He had vanished too, but not like Chisel. Sloane always moved with intention. If he was gone, it meant he had just taken his next step. Jace didn't wait for permission. The moment the guards rushed past his section, he slipped away from the window and moved toward the far end of the block. The alarms kept blaring, drowning out the shouts and the heavy footsteps. Everyone was focused on the second disappearance, and in the chaos, nobody had eyes on him. Brick's last words kept echoing in his mind. Find the vents, Jace. That's where it starts. He had passed the same hallway hundreds of times, but now he saw it differently. A narrow metal grate sat near the bottom of the wall, dust around the edges disturbed, recently touched. Jace crouched beside it, gently pulling at the cover. It moved. Whoever used this vent last hadn't bothered to secure it. Inside, the air smelled old, like parts of Holbrook no one cleaned anymore. Jace slid himself through the opening, hands and knees scraping against cold metal. The tunnel sloped upward slightly, then forked into 2 paths. Faint light flickered from the left side, like someone had left a small bulb burning. He followed the glow. The deeper he went, the quieter the prison sounded. The alarms became echoes. The footsteps faded. Even the shouting dissolved into a dull hum. It felt like he had climbed into another world entirely, still part of Holbrook, but a forgotten part. A part built before modern security. A part someone had kept hidden. Then he entered a small chamber. Aiden Chisel Marrow's toolbox sat open on the ground. Not abandoned. Not dusty. Recently used. Next to it lay a plastic ID badge he didn't recognize. Not an inmate's badge. Not a guard's badge. Something different, silver, with a strip of coating across the top. Jace picked it up. It belonged to a company name he had never heard of. A maintenance contractor from outside the prison. His breath caught. This wasn't about gangs. This wasn't about old rivalries. This wasn't about Chisel at all. It was about access. Someone from the outside had been working with someone inside the prison, using maintenance workers to reach sections no inmate was supposed to know existed. A soft voice echoed behind him. You weren't supposed to find this. Jace spun around. Sloan stood at the entrance of the chamber, calm as always, hands in his pockets. His tattoos glowed faintly under the dim ceiling light. Jace's pulse jumped. You set all of this up? No, Sloan said quietly. I tried to stop it. Jace stared, stunned. Sloan stepped forward slowly. The people behind these disappearances are not inmates. They're contractors, engineers, people with clearance high enough to walk through this place like ghosts. They've been using Chisel and others to test these passages. Why? Jace whispered. To move things, Sloan replied. Or eventually, people. Jace felt a chill crawl up his arms. Sloan continued, voice low. Brick told you to find the vents because he knew this wasn't about gangs. Someone has been feeding lies to stir up a war. If the Vipers and the Union clash, the guards will be too distracted to notice what happens down here. Jace shook his head slowly. Where's Chisel now? Sloan hesitated. He's safe. But not here. Jace didn't know whether to believe him, but he saw something honest in Sloan's eyes. A calm that didn't feel dangerous. It felt tired, like he had been carrying the truth alone for too long. Sloan looked past him toward the vent tunnels. We have maybe 5 minutes before they realize where you are. When they do, they won't want you walking around with that badge. Jace looked down at the silver badge still in his hand. What do we do? He asked. Sloan exhaled slowly. You leave the vent. You return to your cell. You act like you never saw this place. And I'll handle the rest. Jace shook his head. Handle what? Sloan's expression hardened just slightly. Stopping the people behind this before they open more passages. Before Jace could respond, a distant clanging echoed through the vents, boots dropping into metal, flashlights slicing through darkness. Sloan stepped backward, fading into the shadows of the tunnel. Go, he whispered. Before they see you. Jace crawled back into the vent, heart hammering, moving faster than he ever had before. The guards' voices grew louder behind him, the beams of their lights sweeping through the chamber he had just left. He slipped out of the grate and pushed it back into place just as 2 officers rounded the corner. Jace turned casually, pretending he was heading toward the bathrooms. They didn't even look at him. They were searching for someone else. Searching for Sloan. Or maybe searching for whoever used the badge. Jace walked back toward his cell slowly, trying not to breathe too fast. He could feel the entire prison shifting, preparing for something nobody understood yet. Brick was gone. Chisel was gone. Sloan had disappeared into the vents. And Jace now held a truth nobody else had. The most dangerous thing inside Holbrook wasn't a gang. It was a hidden network, built by the people who were supposed to keep the place safe. When Jace stepped back into his cell and the door locked behind him, he finally let out the breath he'd been holding. Holbrook Federal wasn't a prison anymore. It was a maze. And someone else was already moving inside it. If you enjoyed this story and want to see what happens next inside Holbrook Federal, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next chapter. There's far more happening behind these prison walls than anyone realizes, and the truth is only getting deeper. Let me know in the comments if you want a continuation, a part 2, or a full series exploring the hidden forces inside Holbrook. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one. If you enjoy real, gripping prison documentaries and true stories, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, and share it with your friends and family. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss more shocking and exclusive content.